Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the latest crazy moves by the Department of Homeland Security as part of this over the top police state approach to enforcing the border. Part of this seems like they've lost their mind, and part of it seems like they've just gone completely authoritarian. Two stories today. We'll go with the joke that apparently this being the Trump administration is no joke, and that is they're considering and seem to be in the early stages of development. I kid you not, a reality show where immigrants would compete for slots as citizens by going through a number of challenges. And, you can analogize obviously to Trump driven reality shows where they will do who knows. And, part of it seems comic and you gotta be kidding me, but really take a step back. It is so deeply disrespectful to people who want to come to this country, give me you're tired, you're poor, participate in the American experiment, and we're putting them into a real life Hunger Games where they'll prove their mettle. And of course, there will also be, this being a reality show, a bunch of losers who don't prove their mettle to be American citizens and don't do the climbing over the wall and answering questions about the Constitution quickly enough or whatever, all as Americans tune in on their television sets. I mean, it really, your first reaction here is, oh, The Onion has another good one. And they've done, a satire that is really hits home because it shows the sort of nastiness and complete sort of repugnant contempt for immigrants that this administration that seems to, they seem to have an insatiable hunger to feed. But, talk about being our being the laughing stock or the complete source of disgust for the rest of the world. Really, are you there is gotta be people within the government, even this government, who will realize the idiocy and the total nastiness and just the indecency of it. But who knows if they'll prevail or whether the maximum leader will actually greenlight this revolting spectacle. So that's one. And that's all very much at the preliminary stages, but Kristi Noem is said to be involved, and that's how the Department of Homeland Security is reinventing government under Trump. Okay, the second one is much more concrete and much more serious. The Department of Homeland Security has asked the Department of Defense for 20,000 troops and National Guard to help police the border. This is a step really onto the third rail of American law. There is a very strong, not just tradition, but legal division not to use the military for domestic law enforcement. That is what they do in authoritarian countries, right? You have the actual army there to basically, instead of defending the home front, actually acting as law enforcement against citizens. Now here, this would be presumably against immigrants, but it's the same idea. This is domestic law enforcement policing the border. And the law is really clear. Posse Comitatus Act. You can't do it except in very rare circumstances. We saw this in Trump's first administration, that he was said that they were sending troops down to the border, but they actually adhered to legal limits even while pretending not to. And those legal limits were that the Army can only give logistical support and the like. You can't be the law enforcement types. Here again, we've totally transgressed all the previous legal limits that they somewhat respected in Trump 1.0. And now this is just a flat out flouting of the law, but with the same, it's really getting very sort of tired. It's a one-trick pony of the administration. We've got to do these things that authoritarians do. Why? Because it's an emergency. It's an emergency. What does that mean here? There are certain provisions that permit the limited use of the military in an invasion. Say, let's say that some invading force were in Illinois. You can use the Army then. That's what they're trained to do. So what has happened here? A finding by the president. You guessed it. The flooding of aliens over the border, which I think has been shown to be reduced, somehow constitutes the sort of emergency tantamount to the invasion of a foreign country. We're in the same kind of Alice in Wonderland kind of fantasy as they're using in the Alien Enemies Act. It's really trying to play every card they can to not only transgress the law, but elude judicial review and the rule of law for judges to weigh in. So Tammy Duckworth, a Democrat, has come in and said, no, you can't do this, express concern. But how's it going to work? Oh, and the Army itself, by the way, they're a strong, it's in their interest not to be exploited in this way, and they normally aren't. They're given a sort of polite, we'll consider it, etc. But push might come to shove first within the executive branch as Trump, the commander-in-chief, that's the only one we got, has already, seeded the armies with his sycophants as much as he could. General Milley, etc., were ousted, and he's got Trump types at the top. Does he issue the order and they say, okay, and just basically steamroll over the legal restrictions? Now, that it will go to court, and they'll have to try to justify it, but that will serve up another in these series of cases where the administration tries to get away with it by touting some emergency as found by the maximum leader that really is not an emergency, but just sort of part of the overall task of law enforcement, here the policing of the border. So that's how things are shaping up, and that's coming to a head immediately. The first thing to look at is, does the Army say okay? And then does the Congress try to push back? The Democrats certainly will, but will there be any Republicans who do? And then what happens in the courts? But this, unlike our reality show, which is still a little bit on the drawing board, this is real stuff, and a real violation of an important essential line that we have as a democracy, others have as democracy, but authoritarian governments don't have. That's where military marches in the streets and undertakes domestic law enforcement. And now it could happen here. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.